Welcome to the AtoZrunning podcast, where we help runners thrive. I'm Andy.
And I am Zach. And up next, we talk with pro triathlete and professor Todd Buckingham about Cadence. And after that, World of Running updates about Valencia Marathon, Nike Cross Nationals, and more. Glad to have you back with us. Remember that now is the time to begin submitting questions for your end of month Q&A episode. That's coming in December. And so in order to do that, you need to ask your questions. And the easiest way to ask is to go to AtoZrunning.com/question.
And we like to connect with you, as I always say, and you always do, so I appreciate it very much. I had posted a throwback in my stories recently, and it was one of a picture of me at a race when I was about 12 years old. I was wearing this cotton shirt, cotton socks, a sweatband. Looked pretty cool. I stand by that. Sweatband, by the way. I stand by it. Sweatbands can be useful. And then I also had these like little Velcro fasteners to keep my sleeves of that cotton t-shirt up. And it was funny how many of you responded in my era, apparently, that you did the exact same thing when you were young and you were a runner. And I just wanted to tie this into a quick, I guess you could say, tip. And Dr. Whitfit and Amanda and I all agree that we would have told our younger selves to just wear a stinking moisture-wicking shirt and a tank top instead of those fasteners to, help us not get chafing. But you can save that cotton t-shirt that you get from the race for the relaxation after you're finished with the event.
In defense of the people wearing those things, they simply were not as ubiquitous back then, as it were. So it's not like, not everyone had moisture-wicking tech tees
I understand
that were reasonably cheap.
I get that, but it was funny how all of us were kind of pondering the fact that we could have worn a tank top instead of fasteners.
Okay.
Something without sleeves instead of
your
pulling your
it.
sleeves up.
I've never.
We thought we were
tried
pretty
to
cool
wear
though,
things that
and
held my sleeves up. So
they're good
sure.
memories to think back on racing when we were little. So good stuff. Love reminiscing and connecting with you and hearing how running has intersected your lives.
Speaking of good memories to look back on and creating them, you should be signing up for Rivertown races.
Yes.
5K, 10K, or half marathon. And part of the reason why you should be doing that is because we are now partnering with Rivertown Races as the training provider for the event.
Yeah.
And so participants who register get access to not only a generic training plan for any of the events available, that's available to all. However, you also get, if you would like a personalized, a customized plan right for you, you get 50% off our normal training plan fees if you are registered for the event.
Rivertown Races in Millennium Park in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
That is April 22nd of 2023. So if you're looking for a half marathon to do in West Michigan, they've also got 10K or 5K. You definitely want to sign up for one of those, and it's going to be exciting to be able to support you in your training for that as well. But don't wait too long, because the training plan officially starts on December 12th, although you can jump in whenever you register. It doesn't have to be.
Especially if you get customized. Then
that
you
is
really are getting what you need.
So maybe if you wait too long, you'll have to customize it. So keep that in mind while you do. Good. Well, exciting for that announcement, certainly. But keep in mind, in a more timely situation here, December 11th is the Whoville 5K in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so if you're looking for a festive opportunity to run and enjoy some fun costumes, and certainly there are lots of those at this event, we will be there. And at least one of us will be wearing far too many jingle bells. And running
or
with
maybe
them.
both of us.
Or maybe both
and
of
our
us.
children.
They've got kids races. They've got a 5K for all ages, and you should definitely register, because if you do, you can still get $5 off your registration if you use code AtoZ5. That is AtoZ5.
Well, we usually like to tell you what desserts we're eating, but I did want to just show you all, not to brag, it kind of is gloating because you can't really get this.
You just feel so good about your smoked fish.
Okay, so I have white fish smoked. and it is
And that's it.
absolutely
That's what it
delicious. And
is.
it's from my father.
And if
He
you
did
really
it. So.
like smoked fish, then you probably would like that. If you really don't like smoked fish, that probably sounds awful.
And the reason why I'm eating this right now is because I just did a long run, and then we had to hop it on and do this recording. So
and because
this
none
is
of
what
you
I'm
have
munching
to smell
on
her breath,
during this conversation.
like some of us in the studio.
Mm-hmm. It's
Okay,
very good.
well, speaking of
Thank you, Dad.
interesting things to be thinking about that aren't fish, we have a great conversation here. So let's get on to the main topic. Well, we are excited to have with us once again Todd Buckingham, PhD, Professor of Exercise Science, among many other accolades, which I'll share in a moment. But this conversation is going to be enlightening and always is, because what we like most about talking with Todd about these things is we get both perspectives at the same time. An expert, in this case, professional athlete, talking about things that he is also teaching to other people as a professor of the topics. And so that's always really exciting to us. And we get to get Todd's experiences as well as expertise in these things. So keep in mind, those experiences are vast and high in quantity. Todd is a world-class triathlete professional, and with that comes 16 U.S. titles to date. Certainly not done with those. 4 world titles, including the 2022 Ironman 70.3 champion.
So impressive. Incredibly impressive.
So we are honored to have Todd with us once again to talk this time about cadence.
Mm-hmm. And the cadence conversation comes up a lot in the running world. How much should we be paying attention to it? Dr. Todd, shed some light on the topic in this conversation.
Well, Dr. Todd, welcome back to the AtoZrunning podcast for now the 4th time that we've had you on the show. Our audience loves you, so do we. So we want to get sciencey again with you. Welcome to the show, Todd.
All right. Thanks for having me back again. I still don't understand why.
Because you're a wealth of knowledge, of course.
That's it. Exactly.
We have so much fun with you. And then also, like, you're so accomplished, of course, as a cyclist and a runner, and you bring the participation part of your expertise into play. And so we love that about you, Todd. Just the collection of personal experience, and then also what you've learned in your expertise. So yeah, we're excited to have you on the show talking about cadence today. And this is a topic that some of us hone in on and we think about a lot. And there's others of us who are like, what's cadence? What does this mean for running? So let's just start kind of broad. What is cadence?
Yeah, this is a great topic and something that I think a lot of runners pay attention to, and some don't, as you mentioned. But cadence is essentially just how many steps per minute you're taking. It's just like a revolution on your car wheels that you see the speedometer. It's the one next to the speedometer, the revolutions per minute. So cadence is just steps per minute. So it's how many times are we taking a step every minute? And we can easily measure that by counting our steps, or I know a lot of us have the Garmin watches that measure our cadence for us, and we can just look down and go, oh, I'm running at this cadence. So yeah, as far as just the basic understanding of cadence is, it's just how many steps are you taking per minute.
Mm-hmm. So how does that affect running, performance, training? Why is it a conversation that we have?
I think it's a conversation we have because there's this myth out there that you should always run at 180 steps per minute. I think a lot of people listening will have heard that you need to run at 180 steps per minute, but that's actually not true, which is why I call it a myth, because your cadence is going to change as your running speed changes. So running speed is a product of your cadence, how many steps per minute you're taking, and your stride length, how many meters per step you're taking. So if you are running 10 minutes per mile and your cadence is 180 steps per minute, your stride length will be about 0.9 meters, or about 3 feet, a little less than 3 feet. Whereas if you're running 830 per mile pace and your cadence is 180 steps per minute, your stride length is going to be about 3.7 feet. So you can see you're going to be taking a step that's essentially half a foot or more longer if you're running faster. So if you're keeping that same cadence at a variety of speeds, your stride length is going to vary greatly. And so if you slow down or speed up, you're essentially going to be either overstriding or understriding. So at different paces, at different running paces, your cadence should change, because you don't want stride length to be the only thing that's changing. You're going to be more efficient running at certain cadences at certain speeds. So as far as training and racing goes, you're probably going to have a higher cadence during racing because you're running faster. Whereas in training, especially on your easy days, your cadence should be lower. And this is something that you should be doing. It's not something that we always do, because we hear that 180 steps per minute and we want to hit that 180 steps per minute no matter what. But it's really something that you should do in order to get the most benefit out of running.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is, if you're running slower, you're at a more easy effort, you might be there might be a lot of wasted energy by popping your feet up more quickly because your stride length is shorter. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, exactly. So if your stride length is too short, you're essentially just going to be bouncing up and down. If your cadence is 180 steps a minute and you're running really slow, whatever pace that is for you, I mean, I'm sure you will find that you're essentially just bouncing up and down and not really going forward as much. But that's what happens when you run slow, is that your stride length gets shorter. And if you keep your cadence the same, then you're going to have to just bounce up and down. And it looks kind of silly when people run like that. But yeah, it's definitely something that you shouldn't do. Your cadence should change across a variety of speeds. And this whole idea of 180 steps per minute actually comes from the running coach Jack Daniels back in the 1980s, when he observed Olympians during a race running at a cadence of at least 180 steps per minute. Now, I say at least 180 steps per minute because they weren't running exactly 180 steps per minute. Some of them were running much faster than that, like at 200 steps a minute. But he saw that they were running at least 180 or higher. And so then we took that and said, oh, 180, that's what I need to be at. But we have to remember that these are Olympians running in the Olympics during a race. He said nothing about what their cadence was during training or when they're running slower, because during these races, you know, their distances from 800 up to the 5K, and you're looking at Olympians who are running sub 5-minute pace even for a 5K. So their cadence is going to be very fast because they're basically sprinting, right? So for us, the average people, to run at a cadence of 180 or more at whatever pace we're running is not necessarily a good thing. Mm-hmm. This was seen in Olympians during a race. So unless you're an Olympian and racing, you don't always need to be 180 steps a minute or more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Is there a difference in people's heights and what their cadence might be? Like how long their stride would be, how long their legs are? Are those factors?
There actually is no relationship between the two. I actually studied performance in triathletes for my dissertation, and we looked at the relationship between height and stride length, and there was no relationship between the two, which was a little bit surprising, but other studies have seen that as well. Because if you are faster, you're going to have a longer stride length, right? Because like I said earlier, running speed is a product of cadence and stride length. So your stride length is going to be longer if you're running faster. And typically we don't see very tall people in a marathon. You know, the men are 5'6" and the women are 5 foot nothing, but they're still running at close to 5-minute pace or faster for the men for the entire marathon. So even if their cadence is 200 steps a minute to run 5-minute pace, your stride length is going to have to be, you know, pretty long, like 4 feet long. So you still have a very long stride length. And the stride doesn't come from in front of you. Your stride comes from behind you. So it's when you push off the ground that allows you to propel yourself through the air, and you're not reaching forward in front of your body, or you shouldn't be. If you are doing that, stop, because you don't want to reach out in front of your body. You want to push off from behind and really use your glutes and your hamstrings to essentially jump from your back foot to your front foot, with your front foot still landing underneath your body and not out in front of your body. But the stride comes from behind you and not in front of you. So it's more about how powerfully you can push yourself off the ground than it is about having long legs. Because if you think about it that way, and just how strong and how powerful you can push off the ground and basically jump from one foot to the next, it really doesn't matter how tall you are or how long your legs are, because in that case, like smaller and lighter people would have an advantage, because you can jump further because you have less weight and mass weighing you down to propel yourself through the air. So yeah, stride length doesn't have anything to do with how tall you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting topic, because I have heard a lot of people discuss trying to hit the 180 and having music to help them do that and using that in training. Is there a time that you want to be thinking about it, or is that really an output? Is it something that we should be thinking about quick feet in our form, and then that is something that maybe we could see afterwards that could just be like a fun data point? What is your perspective on that?
The short answer is it depends, as with everything. It's one of my favorite sayings, and the athletes I coach, and even my students, I'll ask them, what do you think the answer to this is? It depends, Todd. So it really depends if it's something you should pay attention to or not. So it depends on a few things. One is, are you coming back from an injury that was caused by overstriding, or is it just something that you are paying attention to because somebody told you should run at a cadence of 180 steps a minute? Our bodies do such a good job of being as efficient as possible that we naturally settle into the most efficient cadence for a certain pace. And if we try to change that by stepping faster or even slower, we actually end up using more energy to run that pace by changing cadence. Now, if you're coming back from an injury that was caused by overstriding, yeah, it can be valuable to try to focus on cadence and get your cadence up. I went for a run this morning with the Lion Street Run Club here in Grand Rapids, and it was pretty icy. So I really focused on taking shorter steps, because taking longer steps in the snow and ice, you're more likely to slip and fall, and you don't want that. So that was something that I was focused on this morning when I was out for my run. But it's not something that you need to be focused on all the time, because of that relationship with stride length. Your cadence and stride length make up how fast you're running. So if you can run 6-minute pace with a cadence of 150, okay, that's fine. If you'd rather do it at a cadence of 190, that's fine too, whatever is most efficient for you. But it's not something that you need to consciously think of for every run that you're going out and doing. It's something that I think of very infrequently. I honestly, this morning was probably the first time that I've thought about my cadence in a while, just because it's not something that is like a key data point for me. Yeah, it might be something to look at after the run, but not something that I would look at during the run. And what I would do after the run to analyze it is maybe look at if my cadence was higher or lower compared to my stride length, because then that would tell me if I am being more powerful or not, if I'm going a certain speed. Because you can actually train yourself to take longer strides by weightlifting and producing more power in your lower body, so that you can essentially jump from one foot to the other more efficiently. And that would then make your stride length longer, and then your cadence could actually decrease for a given pace. So there are professional runners, you see a range of cadences from 160 all the way up to 200. So it's not like there's one size fits all and everybody needs to stick at 180. It's a wide range of cadences that you can be successful with.
Mm-hmm. I like this conversation because it helps us understand what the purpose of maybe having quick feet would be. And then also, this is a part I want to highlight. It's not a one size fits all type of cadence situation. And even among pros, there's such diversity. And for us to be thinking about how to be efficient, and you gave us a really great example of how we can get a larger stride length. You said power. So power is one way. Is there another way that we can increase our stride length, maybe mobility, or is there other ways that we can improve?
That's a good question. So mobility and being more flexible is not necessarily going to give you a longer stride length. Running faster will give you a longer stride length just because you have to increase stride length to run faster, as per the equation that I've already spelled out with cadence times stride length equals that running speed. So being more flexible is not necessarily a good thing with running too. Now, there is some base level of flexibility that you have to have. Otherwise, you can't take the joint through its full range of motion. But being overly flexible is not a good thing because, and I think we've talked about this before, but if you think of your muscles and tendons like a rubber band, if you have a loose, floppy rubber band, when it stretches, it's not going to snap back and recoil as quickly as a normal rubber band. When you stretch it, it snaps back and you get that elastic recoil. The muscles act the same way, that when you stretch them, so when your foot hits the ground, you're stretching the muscles, and then when you push off the ground, that rubber band is snapping back into place and pushing you off the ground more efficiently. So if you have that loose, floppy rubber band or muscles and tendons, it's not going to propel you as efficiently, and you're just going to lose some of that energy. So being overly flexible is not a good thing. As I mentioned, you do have to have just normal level of flexibility in the joint in order to take it through its range of motion, but you don't have to be super flexible like a gymnast in order to be able to increase your stride length. So strength training is one way. Running faster, doing strides at the end of a workout to teach your body how to take those longer steps. And then dynamic drills. Okay, dynamic exercise. So not static stretching, because I think when we think of stretching, we think of static stretching, sit and hold, touch your toes. But dynamic stretching allows you to take the muscles through their full range of motion without sitting and holding. So high knees, butt kickers, toe touches, lunges, things like that, take the joint, the hip joint, the knee joint, the ankles through their full range of motion so that they have that range of motion, but you're not doing it in a static manner that lengthens the muscle. It's a quick lengthening and shortening of the muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then also to be able to get off the ground more quickly, you want to have good proprioception. And, if you're working correctly, if you're coming down and you're not doing it in an efficient way, like if you're rocking to the side, or if your leg isn't coming straight down, that's likely going to affect the amount of power that you have. And then of course your stride length too. So there's so many things that go into it. So the input should not be the cadence. That's an output. I do want to backtrack just a minute, because I think a lot of people who are listening, they're listening in the winter. And I love that you had mentioned the quick feet on the ice, because you don't want to push off really hard when it could be an unstable surface. That's something we've recommended to athletes too, as they're going into the winter season, to think of the light and quick feet. And another place, and you can give some feedback into this too, is in cross country, there's a lot of muddy, slippery areas, and to do light and quick feet, it's not to get a certain cadence, but it's to think about how you can, that cadence can help you on unstable surfaces. Do you want to talk or kind of shed light onto that part of cadence?
Yeah, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to maximize the distance that you travel in the air. You're trying to maximize your stride length. Well, if you're running on the ice or the snow, or as you mentioned, mud, cross-country courses, when you push off, if your foot slips behind you and your stride ends up being 2 feet, versus if you're just taking a normal shorter stride and it ends up being 2 feet, and you're not trying to really run fast and push off hard. Well, you have the same stride length, but you're using a lot less energy when you're trying to take a shorter step than when you're taking that longer step and slipping. The other thing is that when you are pushing off more forcefully, trying to run faster, taking longer strides, there's more likelihood that you do slip. So when you're running on snow, ice, mud, taking shorter strides is going to be more efficient because you're not wasting that power or that foot drive by slipping on the snow, ice, or mud. So just from a physiological perspective, it's going to be more efficient to take shorter strides so that you're not slipping and losing that energy, and more of the energy gets returned, you know, through the foot to the movement forward.
Yeah, momentum. Okay. There's so many things in physiology and physics about running that you think running is so simple, but you're like, okay, well, then we have dynamic terrain that we're running on that are going to change how we might do this thing. But a lot of it is automated. Like you were talking about, you were saying the ways that we can improve this are pretty much things that we work on before and after. It's an intentional thing that we do at certain times, right? And then when we get into a race, we don't want to have to think about that or have any kind of feedback, because we have other things to be concentrating on in our race than how many steps per minute we're getting in.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that during a race, you don't want to be thinking about, oh, what should my stride length be? What should my cadence be? What should my vertical oscillation be, or my ground contact time? You just want to run. You want to shut your brain off, because racing is mentally draining anyway. And if you're thinking about all of these things, you're not going to be able to have your best race. In fact, there have been studies done about flow. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with flow, but it's a psychological thing.
We did an episode about it a couple weeks ago. Just recently we did an episode all about flow. Perfect timing.
Yeah, it's hard to reach a state of flow when you're thinking about all of these little things that you have to do. And that just comes with practice and with training and listening to your body. You know, for me with swimming, I don't think I ever get into a state of flow, because it's like, oh, I have to have my hand entry here and turn here, and like my head has to be at this angle and tilt your body down. And I'm not a good swimmer. So it's like I'm thinking about all these things. But if you ask, you know, a professional swimmer, no, they don't think about that stuff at all. It's just like, same thing with running. You know, you don't think about what my cadence is, what my stride length is. So it just takes time to develop that skill, because it is a skill to learn, you know, what your cadence is, what your stride length is, how fast you're running. Because I'm sure, you know, if you were to go out for a run, or if I were to go out for a run, I know I could probably tell you within 5 seconds per mile how fast I'm running. But that's just because I don't listen to music while I run. I listen to my breathing and feel my heart rate, and I can internally sense my cadence and stride length. So it's just something that takes time to develop, and it's not something you should be thinking about for every run, or especially during the race, because you don't want to waste that mental energy on thinking about, oh, what should my cadence be, or, you know, staring at your watch, making sure that you have a cadence of 180 steps a minute.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, and I hope, and I know it's going to be helpful for our audience to know and understand what cadence is, and then how to be able to maybe more intuitively know how to go about cadence work in runs and in races. Is there anything else you want to leave with our audience?
Yeah, there are a couple of things actually. So one is injury, because I know a lot of people are probably out there saying, well, taking a short cadence will prevent injury. And then the other one is foot placement and how your foot hits the ground, you know, whether heel striking or forefoot striking. So we'll talk about the injury piece first. So there are a couple of studies that have been done on running cadence and injury prevention, or seeing if it prevented injury. So there was one study that found no difference between healthy and injured runners and their cadence. And the study looked at people with a higher cadence did not have the lowest load rate, which is just how hard the foot hits the ground. And then the other study found that 13 of 19 runners had a cadence of 168 steps per minute or lower got injured, while only 2 of 9 with a cadence greater than 169 got injured. But the study found that no difference between cadence and injury And the other study found 68% of the runners with low cadence got injured and only 22% with a high cadence got injured. So like one study found nothing, the other study found high cadence didn't get injured, but the studies are very small and we can't draw conclusions from either of those, because you could just look at one or the other and go, well, this one showed that cadence doesn't have an impact on injury, but then you could look at this one and go, oh, this one does have a impact on injury. So these things that, like, when you hear these studies, you really have to look at them in the whole picture of the information. I'm teaching a research methods class this semester, and we talk about the strength of evidence. So when you're looking at a body of data, you can't just say, yep, this is the case because there's one piece of information or two pieces of information. Like, even with just those two pieces of information, I would not feel confident saying one way or the other that cadence impacts injury in any way. So you really have to have a bigger body of evidence. So that's one piece, is that cadence may or may not influence injury risk. The other thing is your foot placement when it hits the ground. So I talked about overstriding and landing in front of your body, but a lot of people think that heel striking is a bad thing. I think we've heard that heel striking isn't good and you shouldn't do it, but there's nothing inherently wrong with heel striking. It's more about where your foot lands underneath your body. So if you're heel striking, but your foot lands underneath your center of gravity, that's totally fine. The problem is when you land out in front of your center of gravity, or if your heel hits the ground and it's not in line with your knee or your hip, that's when you can cause more injury, or you're essentially just slowing yourself down, because it's like you're putting on the brakes, because you're putting your foot down in front of your body, slowing yourself down, having to regenerate that movement of that running cadence. Whereas if you're landing underneath your body, it's essentially you're just falling forward. And I think, what is the running method? Is it the pros or the pose running method, that it's just like talks about falling forward? I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's a running method that talks about falling forward, and having the forward lean is important, because then you can't really land with your foot out in front of your body if you're leaning forward. So it doesn't matter where your foot, what part of your foot hits the ground. It does matter where your foot hits the ground. So even professional runners, you know, people who ran the New York Marathon or the Chicago Marathon a few months ago, they heel strike and they're still running really, really fast. And so it doesn't matter where your foot hits the ground on the foot itself, but more so where the foot hits the ground in relation to your center of gravity. So I know that's one thing that a lot of people tend to focus on, is shortening their stride length, increasing their cadence so that they're not heel striking. But you can keep your cadence long or high, you can keep your stride length long and still land in front of your, or underneath your body with that heel strike, and that's okay. Forefoot striking or midfoot striking isn't for everybody. So whatever feels comfortable for you, just make sure that you're landing closer to the center of gravity instead of out in front of your body. And you can do this pretty easily. Like, just take your phone and videotape yourself running on a treadmill, and do slow motion, and then see how far in front of your hips or your knee your foot is landing, and go, okay, well, I need to make sure that I'm leaning forward a little more. Not necessarily taking shorter strides, but lean forward a little more so that you're not putting the brakes on and landing with that foot out in front of your body.
Mm-hmm. Zach's going to love listening back to this conversation when he gets to hear it. I'm excited because I got the chance to talk to you this time. So because I think a lot of what you're discussing here and giving us a framework to be thinking about when we're running is really listening to our bodies and paying more attention to where our footfall is, paying more attention to what feels right within the rhythm of the effort that we're giving, whatever pace that we are going. And I think that is kind of a key factor that I feel like I'm taking away from you here today, Todd, is that if you can understand all these little bits and pieces, and then you're able to translate them by listening to your body and getting a video taken, because sometimes we don't always feel what is happening. And so sometimes it's helpful to see that and get that kind of feedback. But I think that's a really valuable part of this conversation. And even as you were talking about the studies with like high cadence and low cadence and injury, I wonder if those people who did get injured would have been able to feel that something wasn't right, if there was pain signals, if there were things that were sore as they were running. I'm guessing that that would be the case. If cadence was a factor in their injury, they might have started to feel some things. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, potentially. You know, I think a lot of times we don't feel something is sore or potentially damaging until it's too late and we're already injured. So, because I mean, you know, how many people go through their running careers doing the same thing and just ending up injured over and over again and not really understanding why? So yeah, maybe, but maybe not. Again, it depends. So yeah, you know, I think more research is needed to be done on this stuff because it is important. And I know a lot of people out there are like, well, Todd, you didn't help me at all today. Like, I don't know if I should do a faster cadence or not. There's no conclusive data on whether it prevents injury, but you know, it is, I would say the one takeaway is that you don't have to focus on cadence. There is no clear relationship with injury. So taking a shorter stride and having a faster cadence isn't necessarily going to prevent you from getting injured. It's not going to make you more efficient. It's not going to make you faster. Whatever pace you're running, your body automatically falls into a good cadence and the most efficient for you cadence that there is. You know, the caveats are if you're getting injured or if you're landing with your foot out in front of your body, then maybe you need to change it up a little bit. But for the most part, it's just your body knows what you need to be the most efficient at whatever pace you're running at. So don't think about it too much because you don't want to waste that mental energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that gift of not having to worry about it. Because I think that as runners, we try to control and contrive so many things, and to be able to let that go and to let that cadence come naturally to us is freeing. So I hope you all feel free out there who just listened to Todd give us that permission to let go of the need to conjure a certain cadence. So thank you, Todd, for coming on the show today.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Thanks for coming on the show again, Todd, times 4.
Is it 4? That's
yeah,
excellent.
4 times. Yep, we appreciate the whole conversation and how is able to reinforce kind of what we talk about here on the show about having the intuition as a runner, really listening to our bodies to develop the reading of our body in order to do what we need to do in the sport to help us thrive. And that means, like, of course, large scale, but also in the run itself. And Todd told us that cadence is something that we should not be trying to force, but rather find like a balance. And there's a couple really good notes he had though about like quickening your cadence for things like grass or mud or snow and ice. There are ways that we can use cadence to help us in performance, but to have that 180 be the only ideal is not something we should be focusing so hard on.
Not to the unnatural correction.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good.
Yep. Great conversation with Todd.
Definitely appreciate that. Now let's get on to the world of running.
First off, congratulations are in order to 2 A to Z runners who ran CIM, Aaron and Audie. Congrats to Aaron on a 3-minute PR as well.
Oh, excellent. Very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good. So let's start in on the world of running with the Valencia Marathon. We're taking this one first because it is just a really, really interesting day in Valencia. So Valencia, Spain, has now kind of taken the mantle of like the premier elite marathon in the world. It certainly is clear that this is one where people go to run fast times. It's not one of the majors, so it's a little bit easier for some of the athletes to gain entry because they don't tend to, the race doesn't have to tend to pay quite as much for the athletes to run it, where the majors, there's costs that are higher. But in any event, it does not disappoint. And now for many instances, it's been incredible.
And if you haven't heard about this race yet, Then I'm glad that you
you're
listen to
just
this
not
podcast
paying attention.
because no, I just don't think. I think it's very under publicized that
Because
these
it's not
things
one of the
are happening.
majors. Yeah.
It was an incredible race. I'll let you get to it, Zach.
Okay, I'm very excited, so I'm going to tell you everything. Everything. All right, first of all, on the men's side of the race, we had a debutante win the race. Is that actually the right thing to say?
I
for
don't know
someone
what that
who's
means. I'm sorry.
Debuting, a debutante.
Oh, a debutante. Oh, interesting.
Well, anyway, I
Okay.
don't know because I think a debutante also is something else, but
How about a newbie?
go for it. He's not new to running. He's just new to the marathon.
The marathon is its own animal.
Kelvin Kiptum of Kenya won the race. He is a half marathoner of incredible prowess, but has never run a marathon before. So in his debut, he wins a very fast race. As a matter of fact, he won the race in a new debut record for the men, but also in the third fastest time ever run, making him only the third person to run under 2:02
Right.
in a time of 2:01:53.
That's nasty fast, guys.
The only two people to run faster are the Kipchoge and Kenenisa Bekele.
And he's just debuting.
And that's his first marathon.
What?
So that is incredible. And now it gets worse or better, depending
Better.
on how you're looking at this.
Not worse. Better.
Well, anyway.
Better
So
is better.
not only did he run an incredibly fast time, but his second half marathon was the fastest second half ever run in a marathon in a time of 60 minutes and 15 seconds.
Which means he ran it so strong and smart.
Which means that for the second half, he was running well under world record pace.
Yeah.
So that's Kipchoge's world record. So, wow. That's incredible.
I'm so excited.
Here's what happens, and this is what I find to be so incredibly interesting. At about 30K into the race, he and two others are left. There's only 3 of them left in the race. And he turns to the other 2 guys, and he's like, come on, like, help out with the, leading and stuff. And, they're running fast at this point. I'm like, what are these guys thinking? They're like, no way, I'm not going to do your job for you. If you're so eager, you take it, right? Well, then he decides, okay, I will punish you for that. And he drops a 14 flat 5K for the next 5K. And then proceeds to hold the pace through the end of the race. His next 5K after that was like 14:05. He just keeps it up. And that's how he ran 60:15 for the second half.
That is incredible.
Whoa. So he's 23 years old.
Young.
Plenty of time left. If marathon careers are anything to be observed at this point, he could have another 15 years of world-class marathoning in him. And if he does, watch out, world, because he's off to a good start. All right. Now, that said, of course, he wasn't the only one doing impressive things in the race either, because there were 4 men under 2:04 in the race, which is an incredible thing for a single race. And in second place, Gabriel Guy of Tanzania ran 2:03 flat. Almost. The unofficial
that
was
has to
2:02:59.
be a national record, right?
Yes. And so that's a national record. Also, in third place, Alexander Mutiso of Kenya ran 2:03:29, which would have been the previous debut record because he's
For
also
Kenya.
a first-time marathoner. That would have been the fastest debut ever, except
Snap.
for the guy who won the race, who ran a minute and a half faster than him.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what kind of level of race we're
Unreal.
talking about. World champ Tamarat Tola of Ethiopia was then in fourth in 2:03:40. So you have those 4 guys all under 2:04, which is just amazing. Incredible stuff.
Lentezabet Gede of Ethiopia ran her debut. This was highly anticipated, and people have been
Touted.
very excited about this. And
the main reason why is because this is her debut, but she had told everyone she was going to try to run the world record in her debut. And of course, that raises a buzz. Anytime
Right.
someone says that.
And of course, we're all like, can she do that in her debut? She has the accolades on the track and 10K and half marathon too.
Yes, she holds the world record currently in the 5K track, 10K track, 15K roads, and half marathon roads.
Yeah.
So she was just going to say, let me just add one more to that.
She's hungry.
It didn't go as planned.
But she did run the fastest debut marathon.
That she did.
And that was, she beat it very, what would you say that? She ran okay.
2:16:49 for her first ever marathon, which itself was highly impressive marathon time. Good for second place.
Although that was probably a little
very competitive
humbling,
race.
seeing as how she wanted to get the world record.
I imagine
She's
humbling,
second.
especially because of what happened after she started fading. So she was in it until 35K. The last 7K was very tough for her. And she said in an interview afterwards, she said, I was very tired. It was catching up to her
because the
immensely.
marathon's a beast.
And pays no graces. So Amane Beriso of Ethiopia as well is now the one who kind of takes the spotlight here, because not only did she start pulling away at about 10K to go, but she proceeded to continue chasing the world record time and only faded a bit, running 2:14:58 for the third fastest marathon time ever and a 6-minute PR just to go with it.
Both the men's and the women's marathons, if you're wanting the short note of it, both in the men's and the women's, the winner ran the third fastest all time.
Yeah. And in both instances, now we're talking about they're in league with the best names in marathoning history and road running history in general. Because on the women's side, the only two who have run faster than Beriso there include Ruth Chepngetich, who's got all the accolades
all of them.
in the roads, and Bridget Koske, who holds the world record currently.
Now, you said, how much of a PR was this? You told
6
me.
minutes.
Okay. Yeah, you had told me in person. And I was like, that is crazy.
Yes. So she's one who hasn't really been, people haven't been paying a lot of attention to her lately, because she's been, actually that PR, as a matter of fact, is quite old.
2016?
Yeah, like 6 years old. And she's struggled for a bit. Well, her coach comes back and says, well, yes, she struggled because she's had some injury problems.
Yeah.
But she's finally been healthy for like a year.
That's awesome.
And not only did she run this, but she also ran a 7,000-foot elevation marathon, the Mexico City Marathon in August, and ran like 2:25. Which at 7,000 feet of
wow.
elevation,
We
that
should have been
says
reporting that.
clearly she's in great shape.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Beriso, remember that name.
Amane Beriso of Ethiopia is one to continue to watch, just to see what happens here. So the women's race was a historic race, because not only did you have times like that and a debut record, you also had 7 women under 2:19, which is the best by far
Ever.
of
The
any
last
single
best
race.
was 5 under
Something like that.
2:19.
Yeah, which we reported on, but is old news now. So 7 women under 2:19, and not just 7, but under 2:19, but you had a whole handful of women under 2:18 even. And so you mentioned the first 2 already. Sheila Chepkurui was also under 2:18. In third place, she ran 2:17:29, which was her debut.
Yep. Yeah, Sheila.
And would have been especially notable, but the other debut record ahead of her. And so, all that good stuff. But then 21-year-old Tedu Teshome of Ethiopia also ran another 6-minute PR to run 2:17:36 for 4.
6-minute PR.
Yep.
Snap.
At 21 years of age, running these
Okay, I'm
world-class
so
times.
excited about this next one.
All right, now this one. So we've been talking about these youngsters doing crazy stuff. Well, how about people who aren't youngsters anymore? Can they still do crazy stuff? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
Sinead Diver of Australia, previously of Ireland. She's been running for Australia now for about 6 or 8 years or so. And she ran a 3-minute PR for 2:21:34 at 45 years of age for a new Australian national record.
Diver is my hero.
And the world best 45-plus marathon ever. So
Let's get geeked.
that's really
Let's
something.
get geeked that
So-
she can run that fast.
Yeah, and she's what was her, she was in the Olympics just recently in top 10, right? Or right around top 10.
We talked about her.
Yeah.
So she was doing
she's
well.
she's at the the world class stage. She ran her first marathon at age 37. So she actually hasn't been doing this all that long, about 8 years of marathoning.
She was a professional runner before
Yes.
that, though.
She's been a good runner
Yeah.
for a long time. But that's just really taking leaps and bounds of improvement still at this point. Is just wonderful to see. By the way, a quick side note, Australia had some good marathoning going on that weekend, because Brett Robinson, also in a totally different event, ran a new men's Australian record in 2:07 and change. So that's cool. You get two Australian records go down the same day. Very fun. All right, now
Back to the youngsters.
let's take a total pivot. We've talked about marathoning and the world-class runners. Now let's talk about high school cross country.
Who could also be
High
world-class
school,
runners.
also, high school cross country is like this never-ending season. It just keeps
It's
going and
never
going.
ending.
So here we had the Nike Cross Nationals back again. Nike Cross Nationals had a whole bunch of like random breaks and misses because of the COVID stuff. But back in full force, trying to be kind of the premier cross-country national championship in the United States. There's a few of them that tend to vie for that spot. Nike Cross is where they take these regional races, and they call them Nike Cross Regionals, and The best finishers from each of the regions then meet together for it's like a 100-person race in Oregon. So here's how it went down, and it's really quite interesting. On the girls' race, not surprising at all that Irene Riggs stormed ahead of everyone and then just stayed in front.
And she has the record.
Does
she have the national record?
No. Second fastest ever.
Okay.
But yes, so if you recall, we reported she ran 16:02 at I believe it was one of the regionals courses. But she ran 16:40 to win this race. It was by 14 seconds, not like a minute and a half like the last race she ran.
But still,
she was tired.
14 seconds. It's not a long race. It's 5K.
Right.
So 14 seconds is good.
Yes, but the point being, she wasn't trying to win by more than that. She was just trying to win strongly because it was super windy and the course is kind of hilly. And so it was a
managing
very challenging
her effort.
Yes.
Good work, Irene.
Solid that. So some great racing going on throughout the race, but then we started noticing some interesting things about some of the runners. Like these names look familiar. And we're like, why is it that we recognize these names? Well, there's
fun for us
reason.
at least.
First up, Sophia Kennedy finished 7th overall in the race. Sophia Kennedy is the daughter of Bobby Kennedy, who was the one-time U.S. 5K record holder in an era when American distance runners really weren't that successful on the world stage. And he was kind of like the only one for a while. It was kind of cool.
And I knew who he was.
Yeah, didn't you meet him?
Yeah, I met Bob Kennedy at Gazelle.
Yes, at Gazelle Sports.
Yeah.
He did a signing once. Yeah, so back to the college days there for you, Andy. So Sophia Kennedy, his daughter, finishing 7th in Nike Cross Nationals. That's quite impressive. She's a senior, I believe, or a junior. But either way, upperclassman, running great. She's got a good future ahead of her if she continues it on for sure. And then we saw another name. And I thought to myself, why aren't the announcers commenting on, because they were commenting on Bobby Kennedy. And I'm like, that one's another one that stands out to me. And then they said it. And I was like,
good. Yeah.
So, by the way, we have... you can watch these races in full if you would like to actually see them come down. So in 18th place, we recognized another name. It was Addie Ritzenhein. Yes, daughter of Dathan Ritzenhein. Part of the reason why this surprised me is because she's a freshman, and I just was not expecting to see her name at Nike Cross Nationals finishing in the top 20.
Yeah.
She was the best freshman, by the way. The next best 9th grader was 43rd place. So she's got some serious legs on anybody else at her age.
But are you surprised?
No.
Because both her mother, Kaylin, and her father, Dathan, are amazing runners.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. But it was funny because I didn't really think of her as the runner in the family because, well, they're a family of runners. But she was doing swimming when she lived here.
Yeah, well, she's clearly doing running as well.
Yeah.
So Ritzenhein also led her team, and her team ended up finishing 2nd in the team standings.
That's awesome.
Way
Way to go, Addie. Congrats.
Yes, very well done.
Those of us in Rockford are very proud of you.
West Michigan people
gathering,
rallying behind. All right. So on the boys' race, it was especially fun to watch because they basically were saying ahead of this race that it was like one of 4 boys that were going to win this thing for sure. It just so happened that there were 4 boys in the race who were basically all undefeated. Now, that's not exactly true because Leo and Lex Young are twins from Newbury Park. And the only people who have beaten them are each other. So this year they've beaten each other, but no one else has beaten them. And then there's 2 other boys in the race who have never lost to anyone because, as it goes, they've never raced each other. So one of those 4 boys were considered to be the likeliest winners. As it happens, none of them won. But that's where things just get exciting because the race went out what you would have expected. The favorites went to the front. Leo and Lex Young specifically wanted to put the pedal down early. They went through the mile. The boys went through the mile in 4:30, which is not necessarily
on a hilly, windy day.
Good on a hilly, windy day. So they were trying to really break things off, and unfortunately they weren't able to break things off because just about everybody went with them. It was an incredible thing to see this many people running fast early in the race. So it was Lex who pushed early, Lex Young, and then brother Leo was kind of just rolling with him. And then Lex started fading about halfway into the race, which is uncharacteristic. He hasn't done that all year, but he was tiring, clearly. And Leo took over, and he looked like he was a definitive victory. He had a gap, and he was pushing strong with like 800 to go, was increasing his gap. And Galen Rupp, who was announcing for the race, as it happens, Galen Rupp even made the comment like, this is over. Like, it's done at about 500 to go. And then things changed fast.
Because he tied up, right?
Well, he didn't look like he was tying up, but he started slowing, and he started slowing at exactly the wrong moment, because the moment he started slowing was when his teammate, Aaron Salmon, who is not that far behind, started picking it up. And so Leo slows as he's going up the last hill, and Aaron Salmon goes up that hill like a freight train, which I believe is the same thing that Galen Rupp said in the commentary, and passed him like he was standing still. It was incredible. Right at the top of the hill, Salmon goes by, and you could just see that at that point, Leo was no longer fighting to try to fight. He was just trying to hold on.
Okay.
And so Aaron Salmon comes by, just storms by for the victory, which marks now the second Salmon brother to win Nike Cross Nationals, because his older brother also won this race.
So maybe he's been taking
last
notes.
Year.
Yeah, he's been taking some notes.
Indeed that. And so Aaron Salmon wins the race, which was a surprise upset. He has never beaten Leo and Lex Young in cross country.
Okay.
At least, I guess not this year. I can't recall specifically if earlier in high school, but
He just was waiting for them to wear themselves out and then come and claim the national title.
what's even more incredible is Leo, who was so far ahead with 800 to go and still leading at 500 to go, ended up in 11th place.
Yeah.
That's how fast everyone was coming on
And
in the end.
also, it's just so hard when you think you are going to win, and it kind of breaks your spirit when the first one passes.
Yeah.
And then it's just hard if you had any kind of emotions that rushed through it. I mean, yeah, we're not single-dimensional human beings. So,
True that.
yeah.
Well, if you want to watch some great races, those are some good ones to watch, and we'll put a link to them on the post on AtoZrunning.com. Speaking of great races to watch, this next one here, we've also got the full race footage you could watch if you would like, and that is the BU season opener for indoor track and field.
Nice.
We were anticipating
Indoor.
this one. We
Ooh,
mentioned
I'm so
it.
excited.
Caitlin Toohey running, and there was some talk about the potentiality that she would be going for the collegiate 5K record, which is 15:01 or 02:01, something like that, held by Jenny Simpson. Well, Toohey was going for it because the Pacers, who happen to be professional runners Emma Coburn and Danny Jones of New Balance, were pacing the race at 15 flat pace.
How cool.
Yeah,
By
right?
the way, how
Very cool.
awesome. That'd be so exciting to have them as your pacers.
Well, they did a great job. They kept the race honest and on pace. However, it simply was not in the cards this time, as Caitlin Toohey was not able to hang on after about the 3K-ish mark.
It's a long season.
Indeed,
to
it is
extend.
that.
Yeah.
But she still ran great. She finished second in 15:15. It was Annie Rodenfels, however, of the BAA, who took hard after the Pacers dropped. She charged ahead and then put a decent gap that just kind of held the rest of the way through, and she won it in 15:08.
Oh. She's, you remember, she's part of the talk for the Olympic trials on the
Indeed.
track. So,
Indeed.
yep. Strutting her stuff.
Well,
Very
she's
good.
starting her season well, that's for sure. Now, back in the race, more interesting things were going on because Alabama's women went 3rd and 4th. Hilda Olamomoy and Mercy Shalangat running 15:17 and 15:18. That's a strong 1-2
Wow.
punch for a single school.
Absolutely.
Absolutely that. And then true freshman Natalie Cook, we've been talking about her as well, ran a new under 20 U.S. record, which I believe was her own record, but she ran 15:24 for a 1-second personal best and a new U20 record in her track season opener.
Wow.
And it should be noted that on the men's side, Parker Wolf also ran a new under 20 record. He ran 13:19 in the men's race. He runs for UNC currently, and that's impressive because that was Nico Young's record. We just mentioned his younger brothers Lex and Leo. Well, Nico Young, running for Northern Arizona University, held the U20 record previously from last year. Well, Parker Wolf just broke it.
And obviously, there's some good freshmen coming up. Wink, wink. Addie Ritzenhein. So who knows how long that
More
U20
youngsters coming
will
on,
stand.
right? Cool things. Well, hey, before we break this session, we did want to mention here a couple bonus things because there's just so many good things going on. One of those being just a very interesting story. There's an Australian runner. Her name is Urchana Murray Bartlett, and she is running marathons, lots of them. She just completed her 100th in a row. And at the time of our recording, depending on when you're listening to this, she's probably going to be somewhere around 102 and 103. And the reason why that's significant is because the world record held by Guinness book of world records is 106 marathons
Okay.
in a row. That's every day, marathon every day.
Sounds horrible.
She's trying to run 107 and then go on to continue running until she gets to 150.
Whoa.
Her goal is 150 marathons in a row.
So she doesn't want to just get it. She wants to crush it.
Yes, and that's in fact the reason why. When asked, she said, well, here's the problem. That record has been changing rapidly. In the last several years, it's getting broken consistently by like 1 or 2. She's like, so I'm going to break it by a lot, and then hopefully I'll hold on to it for a while because she doesn't want to do it again. And I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We're linking to that story if you want to read more about it. And then one other quick note, because we've been reporting quite a bit on the doping situation in the world. We mentioned to you that Kenya was potentially at risk of suspension as a country. Well, the World Athletics Organization met, and the Athlete Integrity Unit met, and they decided not to suspend Kenya, but at very severe restrictions and parameters that must be met. So Kenya is promising that they will work very hard to ensure that their athletes are tested regularly, to ensure that they're abiding by the global protocols. And that makes sense. And one comment from Seb Coe, who's the president of World Athletics, I think, or the Olympic Committee, one of the two, maybe both. Seb Coe said he feels good about that interaction because in his mind, the fact that so many Kenyan athletes have been caught in the last year is itself evidence that Kenya is trying hard to police their athletes well, because otherwise they wouldn't be getting caught. And so his comments are they are trying to crack down on the problem, and as a result, they're going through a period right now where there's a lot of guilty instances. However, that should lessen, because clearly it's going to be harder for athletes to do things like that. I think that's a decent perspective on it. That said, Russia may be reinstated in March of 2023 as well. So we might have a full contingent again with no national bans at this time.
On a final high note, Futsum Zanasalasi that we've had on our podcast recently, he won CIM.
In his debut.
I told you that I would keep you updated on his marathon, and it went as he had hoped. He won the race. He qualified for the trials, of course. He ran 2:11 and change. So very strong running, very strong debut from Futsum.
Not a bad way to do it. Winning the CIM race, U.S. Championship Marathon, as well as running a time that puts him really high up on the standings. Because keep in mind that qualifying for the Olympics is a combination of two things. One, it's how far up you go in the world rankings. And two, it's how well you perform at the U.S. trials. So if he can perform well at the U.S. trials as well, that by itself, that's a ticket in the door.
And this probably qualifies him for the world championships in the...
Yeah, I never really quite know, because U.S. just decides who they want to send to the world championships. Oh. It's not an official thing like that. Okay. There are stipulations, like if you perform well at races like this one, you're more likely to get chosen.
Yeah, I think if you win the world champion or the U.S. championship marathon, that you have an automatic
invitation.
Yeah.
Most of the time, well, not
who
most
knows?
Of the time,
I mean,
lots of the time,
there's a lot going on, a lot of racing for Futsum, so who knows if that's on his agenda or not. But we're excited to follow along.
Speaking of excitement, there's a lot of things coming up that we want to make sure that you are well prepared for. And so, if you need support in your training and preparations, your spring goal races are on your mind. We know it because, December's not very long, and then the new year is going to be here. So if you need some help with some of those kinds of things, and especially as many are finding you would like something built, customized just for you, and it only takes a couple of minutes, so it can be quick and it can be effective, check out our training services and the custom training plan option. Mm-hmm. You can find that at AtoZrunning.com. Look for the word coaching.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all for joining us once again, and we'll talk to you next week.